Hello guys, it's Christian from Emotions in Wine. Welcome back or welcome if you are new. Today, as you see, one of the more casual videos, talk only, and something fitting. Today is the first or almost the first warm day. Started the summer, is beginning June, so perfect timing. I hope you will find it interesting. I will give some tips of really refreshing wines. Then it's not absolute because there is also the wine making, the styles that they look for. So it's not an absolute, but at least the characteristics of the grape. So I will not talk in details about wines and wineries. Later we will taste some of these, but today just in general about the grapes. All Italian and some very lesser known. So I hope you will find it interesting. So let's start. First, Kerner, which is something that most probably none of you or almost know, was created by crossing Riesling and Vernach. Actually, Vernach is typical of Alto Adige in North Italy near Austria, but it was born in Germany. Germany was the main location for this grape, Kerner. 30 years ago was quite present, now less, and you don't find easily them around, and neither ratings. So nowadays the most important region seems to be Alto Adige in North Italy, even though this production is very tiny. Then of course Switzerland, Austria, interestingly in Hokkaido in Japan they have a good results and there is a bit of planting. But anyway, it's a small production, so it's not easy to find. Probably Alto Adige is the easiest to find and top quality. There are many wineries famous, so we will talk about in the next video when I will do some of the tastings. And also the characteristics of the place, I think, is mostly in Valle Isarco, so the northernmost part of Alto Adige, even at 600-700 meters. So it's crossing of Riesling, I said, but it's not comparable because it's less acidity and a bit more body structure. Still on the freshness, on the minerality, also due to the soils, but can be more alcoholic also around there. So also for these reasons it is often planted quite high, but it's more versatile there is, so you can find it in different situations. So fresh, mostly on citrusy notes, and when it's properly done, it's very elegant, 13 alcohol, so a perfect aperitif, and with seafood. So it's a great alternative for mountainous regions for a summer sip. Of course, we could talk about other wines of Alto Adige. We did the Chardonnay video before, by the way, if you are interested to see that, the link is below. Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Blanc, and several others, even Sylvaner and other minor grapes, are all suitable for the purpose because, as I repeated in different videos, Alto Adige is very interesting for the whites. Of course, in some cases they can have structure, but in general they tend to have good acidity, even if altitudes not always are very high, but there is more excursion, so they are. But I focus on this one that is something very niche. So I give you some more famous, some less. Next, Verdicchio. Verdicchio is one of the most planted grapes in Italy. Is in Marche region, so in the middle on the Adriatic side. Is not that famous, but is quite famous. Is quite versatile. Is typical for Verdicchio, the verde, green, because the color is very greenish at the beginning. High acidity, so it's also here citrusy, then bitter almond in the end. Very easy, fresh usually, but even here you can have different winemaking, different alcohol levels. So it's not a fixed rule. Also, Verdicchio di Castelli di Jesi and Verdicchio di Matelica. So are two appellations, then Classico, etc., but two main locations. So The Verdicchio di Castelli di Jesi is closer to the sea, while Verdicchio di Matelica is a smaller area, more inner, so higher altitudes. Both can give a series of varieties, sparkling, even age in oak, reserva versions. So, but the fresh ones usually are still very fresh, as I said, so perfect aperitifs and seafood matches. So another interesting thing, quite common to find also, unlike Kerner. So this you can find everywhere. There are many more popular wineries, more niche. Many are medium small, so you have a lot of varieties. Look for the fresh versions. That is the point. With the fresh ones, you go sure. Some can age very well if they are a bit oaked, but that is another topic. Next, another special. This is extremely niche, but it's something that I like. I was there many years ago. I tried several of them. Sometimes I find them. It's not easy. Very tiny production, but is representative and is quite interesting. Petite Arvine, originally from Switzerland, Valle canton. There is a tiny production even there, but also in Valle d'Aosta. Valle d'Aosta is near Mont Blanc, so is the most northwestern region of Italy in the corner, very small, is all mountainous. Aosta is the main town, the capital, and there is the river Valle in the middle of the mountains. So it's even easier to find Val d'Aosta Petite Arvine than the Swiss one, also because Swiss market usually consume inside, they don't export much and they are more expensive. So in general, you have a better chance to find some Valle d'Aosta wine around the world. Is in the middle of the valley, near Aosta town, 5, 6, 700 meters mostly. Some vineyards can be a bit lower. There are quite a few wineries producing, and is also a northern grape, so high acidity, citrusy notes, is later ripening, so is planted always in sunny exposure, and that can make in some cases a bit higher alcohol. So that is a bit of handicap considering summery wine, but the acidity high, the freshness, the citrusy, still rebalancing, and it has a great aging potential. So it's still a nice summery wine. Not easy to find, but if you have a chance, we will taste it later on. Is something worth to try it. Is an experience, and there are fewer wineries that are quite available. Then we cannot miss to talk about Vermentino, probably, surely the most famous of those I'm mentioning. Is quite relevant. First of all, because it's produced in many regions, not just in Sardinia, but of course Sardinia is the home, even if it's not sure exactly where it started. But anyway, in Sardinia you have Vermentino di Sardegna and Vermentino di Gallura, which is the only VOCG of Sardinia. So it's the most prestigious part in the northern corner of the island, while the Vermentino di Sardegna is produced all around. But it's also in Liguria, a bit in North Tuscany on the coastal side, in Corsica, so the other island north of Sardinia, French, south of France. So it's quite present in the area. Is of course changing characteristics, focusing on the Sardinian because they are the most representative and more available because there are bigger productions. The Vermentino di Gallura said is the top expression, a bit more complexity, has more helper notes usually besides the fruity and salty also. While the Vermentino di Sardegna is said all around the island, but majority near the coast, then in some cases can be inside. What is interesting that near the coast there are the breezes, a bit of fresh from the seaside, so in the night there is good excursion, so retaining acidity. Of course we are not talking about the acidity like the other grapes, but still good one. So you have interesting wine, a bit different. The other, as you heard, there are common characteristics like acidity, citrusy. Here, no. The acidity is a bit lower. It's more fruity in general. You have more these herbal notes, some salty, especially when it's near the coast. So it's a bit a different kind. Even here, you can have many different styles, but in general, they don't do much oak. So it's more an approachable wine in general, Vermentino. Can be more straightforward, fruity, or a bit richer, like in Gallura or in some Vermentino and Sardegna cases, but still very interesting. And also prices are very reasonable. All these wines are quite approachable. Probably Verdicchio are the cheapest, the entry levels, fresh. Alto Adige is more expensive in general. Val d'Aosta, too, their altitude, low production, so it's normal. Sardinia also quite affordable. So you have a range of different things. We could talk about many others because there are many others, Campania in particular. I will talk more about Campania, but Falanghina, Greco di Tuffo, Fiano di Avellino are all suitable as summer wines. The alcohol is always about 13. They have minerality, freshness, so they are very suitable. Soave in Veneto, so in the northeast, could be another one. Even there, especially Soave Classico, which means on the classic hills, because Soave simple can be from flatter area in the last decades. So that is usually very low alcohol, very refreshing mineral if it's from the rocky hills. So it's another. We have plenty, but I focused on some very niche in particular, some quite common, and I just hinted a few others. I hope you enjoyed. As said, we'll taste later on some in one video and then others in specific videos with couple of versions of the same grapes, those more famous. So we will have more whites along the summer. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, please, and see you next time.